Playmates, and welcome back to the channel. For those of you that are new here, I'm Kimmy. Today, I and my squeaky hammer of justice are back to read and render judgment on some r/am I the a-hole drama. So go ahead and grab your libation of choice and sit back while we address the mess. Today's story is called Am I the A-hole for divorcing my husband because he spent 10 minutes in the car during a family emergency? Hopefully those 10 minutes weren't spent texting an affair partner, but who knows considering the stories that I've been reading lately. But let's get into it. I have been married to my husband for 2 years. He has a habit of sitting in the car for 5 to 10 minutes before entering the house. I don't know why he does it, but he talked about a past traumatic experience he had when he came home and caught his ex cheating on him. Because of that, he'd just spend a few minutes in his car before he enters his home as a response to his trauma. Now, I won't say that he's wrong for coping with what happened, but this has made me feel uneasy and has caused many fights between us. Like when we have guests, he'd sit outside before coming in, or when dinner is waiting on him, he'd take 10 minutes silently sitting in the car. I was worried that something might come up and he does not respond properly. And it happened last week. My 8-year-old son tripped and fell from the stairs and broke his ankle. He was in so much pain, and I called my husband to come take him to the hospital, and he rushed out of work. But then I called, and then I was stunned when I looked out the window and saw him sitting outside the house in his car. I was both shocked and angry. I ran outside and asked how long he was sitting in the car. He told me around 8 minutes. I asked why he didn't come into the house immediately and help, and he said he would after 2 more minutes. I was mad and hurt and tried to rush him, but he insisted that he wouldn't feel comfortable coming in until the 10 minutes were up. He told me to get my son ready to take him to the hospital, but I started screaming at him nonstop, telling him that this was a family emergency and that he was out of his mind to behave like that. It might not have been my best response, but I was shocked by his behavior and quite concerned because I had this situation always stuck in the back of my mind, thinking what my husband would do when there's a family emergency. I ended up taking my son by myself when my neighbor intervened and offered to take us. We went to the hospital, and later my husband came and tried to talk to me, but I refused. I then went to stay with my mom and texted him that I wanted a divorce. He tried to rationalize and justify what he's done, saying he could not help it and that he was nervous and wanted to help my son but felt stuck. I refused to reply to his messages, and days later his family literally harassed me, saying I was making my husband's trauma more severe and that I disrespected his boundaries by pushing him off his limits. I feel lost and unable to think because of the whole ordeal. My family are with me on this, but they can be biased sometimes. My husband is still trying to basically talk me out of divorce, saying I'm making a huge deal out of it. I feel like I no longer have trust in him, especially when it comes to serious stuff like how cold he acted in a family emergency. Editing Kimmy here. I missed the last line where OP clarified that her son is not biologically her husband's. Ooh. There are red flags in this one. I actually didn't have them handy, but especially with how insistent he is on the time period that he has to sit in the car. I'm no expert, I'm just a dumb bitch on the internet with an opinion, but this sounds very, very OCD. Just not being able to move until like a certain amount of time passed. It doesn't make logical sense to you or me. But to him, and considering that he's tied it to walking in on a cheating partner, that maybe if he would have waited, the guy would have squeaked out the back and he wouldn't have known anything else. But that doesn't change the fact that she cheated. But obviously that's outside looking in without the condition, with a rational mind, but his mind isn't. Just based on the fact that how dire the situation was, and he was still not able to get out of that lock of a specific amount of time for him to sit in his car, definitely signals to me that he needs some help. Now, if he's not willing to get that, then that could be another issue altogether. But because, I mean, I have, my issues I'm sure a lot of you do as well. While a lot of what we have might not necessarily be our fault, it is our responsibility to try to manage it the best that we can. But of course, in the hellscape that we currently live in, access to such things is limited. So that might also be an issue as well. But this is just a really difficult situation, and if it's something to where maybe he's unwilling to get help and she doesn't feel like that she can depend on her husband, then I have to give not the a-hole to OP here. This is an extremely difficult situation with a very difficult mental condition. It's going to be equal parts of if they have the means to take care of it, and if there's an expressed willingness, like maybe things can be salvaged. It is just a difficult situation all around, but it's unfortunate that the trauma that the husband has been locked him in this condition. But OP needs to be able to know that she can depend on her partner when things go wrong. Tough decisions might have to be made here. But we can go ahead and see what the comments have to say. Top comment: it sounds like he is stuck in a compulsive behavior. He needs to find a professional to help him address it. It's going to be tough, especially as he let you down when you needed him. I bet he really feels bad about the situation. P.S. I hope your son is doing okay. The first reply, it must be 10 minutes is the flag, and he needs professionals to address that with him. And that was definitely the flag with me too, especially since she came out and asked him, how long have you been out here? And he knew 8 minutes, and he had to be there 2 more minutes. That's a very, very compulsive sort of pattern. Oh, so we have a comment from the OP. OP said that he had refused professional help and his family had sided with him. I'm not entirely sure, as far as OCD goes, so if the rituals, derive a sense of comfort or a sense of stability, and maybe that is something that he is too afraid to let go of at the cost of his family, and that's extremely tragic. That's really that's just really sad. Maybe OP leaving him might be the wake-up call, possibly, but it's just that OP is suffering with not being able to trust him, and he's suffering with this absolute need to sit in his vehicle whenever he comes home. It seems like it's just something that's extremely comfortable to him, and his family kind of sees that too and enables it, or it encourages it, maybe because they don't see another way, or of course, depending on the ages weren't given in this story. The parents might be of the, oh well, we don't believe in mental health care or something like that. Who knows? But of course, I also want to consider. I know that there's some other treatments now and medication and things like that, but of course, in the current hellscape that we live in, it might also be prohibitively expensive. There were no indicators in the story as far as if being able to get professional psychiatric help was beyond their means. But since the OP brought it up that he refused help, it just seemed like that it was a possibility, and he was just unwilling to do it. So another comment: if he refused professional help, then you have your answer. You need to be able to rely on your husband in case of an emergency, and he proved to you that you can't. You're definitely not the a-hole. And that's really what is really difficult about this one, is that I guess she's tried to push him to get help, he's refused, and that just might be it. Hopefully he realizes that he does have a problem and does seek that help. And just with a lot of issues that people face, it's kind of shitty that it has to be the whole sort of rock bottom kind of situation before people actually try to do something. But I guess rock bottom is a pretty big motivator in a lot of cases. Kind of what I was saying before in this other comment, mental health isn't your fault, but it is your responsibility. And that's all there is to it. If you have a problem and you're working on it, good. If you refuse to work on it, you can get bent. I probably don't really say it as harshly as that, but I mean, that is kind of what it is. It is your responsibility to try to take care of it as within your means, of course. But once again, hellscape. Next comment. Bone's not getting any more broken. I can safely satisfy my compulsion. He's probably thinking, but you don't know how far that sort of compulsive behavior is going to go, though. I wouldn't trust him not to rationalize something that isn't a big deal when it is, and he just doesn't know as much as he thinks he does, especially when he's so absorbed in his own compulsion that he'd rather sit in his car every day than go to therapy. This was a broken bone, obviously still a big deal, but not immediately life-threatening. But would he still be sitting in that car if, you know, the house was on fire, or, you know, any other, oh my god, if his car caught on fire, would he have to sit in his car for 10 minutes before getting out? It does kind of speak to, like, you know, where that line would be. But of course, I mean, that, you know, depends on his condition, and that requires a professional to deal with it. One of the replies here, this time a bone, next time a stroke. Every minute counts in a stroke. You know, I'm guessing just because of his condition, you know, those things don't factor, which is why he needs to get help. That is what I have for you today. So if you have any input to put into this story, just go ahead and drop that down below. If you like what you see here, just gently stroke that like and subscribe button and stimulate that algorithm. And until it's time to come slay with me, go slay with yourselves. Bye!